Hello, I'm Keith Powell, Director and Founder of the Digital Impact Awareness Initiative, and this is AI for Communications. This podcast is an extension of my Substack, also called AI for Communications, which you can find at aiforcomms.substack.com, and is meant to provide communications and other related professionals the tools they need to effectively and responsibly use AI in their work. Today's topic is about policy. Isn't this what gets in the way of innovation, or prevents you from making that deep fake of your boss and that chicken? Well, it really depends on your perspective when it comes to the rules and how AI is created and governed. Some companies and governments are adamant that any guardrails prevent them from developing AI to its fullest potential. This is often countered by policymakers concerned about both the known and unknown risks of AI. This push and pull will have definite implications down the road and will surely have an impact on how AI develops and how people use it, not just for communications, but generally. And since this is all about communications, I will touch on how the current AI landscape will affect your work, but first we will need to take a look at how we got here. AI is the new space race. Countries are using their role in developing AI as an indicator of their influence and power. Take, for example, the Americans' use of the word dominance in their AI policy. Not leadership, dominance. We are seeing this not just through the country's domestic AI action plan, but through its exporting of national values and policy. We are seeing this in how the government is dealing aggressively with European leadership and their policies towards the European Union's Digital Services Act, with the Trump administration saying that the EU's attempts to combat hateful speech, misinformation, and disinformation amounts to censorship and attempts to stifle free speech. According to Reuters, the Trump administration has also considered sanctions on European Union or EU member state officials responsible for implementing the Digital Services Act. The big AI companies seem to be working with various governments in pursuit of these goals. They also have their own investors to please. So this means that there are two, not necessarily opposite forces at play, but ones that are not always dedicated to the interests of users or society, but to state or stakeholder interests. This creates strong incentives to cut corners in order to advance AI technology without consideration or interest in safety, public interest, or even long-term consequences. And we've seen this kind of blind spot before. I remember years ago during my master's studies, we used to debate about whether the internet is a public utility, much like electricity or water. Back then, the public sector was increasingly creating digital-first services, where services were designed with the internet in mind, and paper or in-person services were an afterthought, if they were considered at all. The idea was that everyone was going to be online anyway, and everybody had a phone, etc., etc., etc. This was an incredibly privileged, tin-eared approach to spending public money and worked only to widen the digital divide and disproportionately impact those who most needed to access these services. And sure, public services might be free to its citizens in many countries, but data certainly isn't. That was the main parameter that wasn't taken into account when designing these new ways of serving the public. And I see something similar with AI. Tech pros who run the AI companies, the high-level bureaucrats and politicians who legislate AI policy have blind spots that have or will have a negative impact on people, communities, or society. Whether it comes to using the work of artists who make a subsistence living as training data without consent or compensation, or usurping the water supply in impoverished areas where local leadership is weak, or causing psychological harm to individuals who become mentally dependent on AI chatbots. The solutions to these problems that I've seen are always a variant of AI will solve these problems. And that is a very large leap of faith in a new technology that is definitely showing growing pains. This reckless, profit-driven approach to AI is at odds with one that is people-centered with society's best interests in mind. And despite all this, I'm not actually anti-artificial intelligence. Like anything, it's a great tool that simplifies our work when used correctly. And it could mean communications work is impacted in ways you may not expect. What does this mean for communicators? Well, AI tools will be developed in the context of the scenarios mentioned previously in this podcast. The biggest impact, I think, will be how the AI reasons. Narratives will be developed with the sponsor's need in mind, and outside perspectives may not make it into the data, making certain narrative analysis or construction somewhat unreliable. If the US and China are building competing AI systems, what information will they give to the system and what will they leave out? Narratives matter. If you're building your own custom GPTs or agents on top of an existing tool like ChatGPT, be transparent about how your organization uses AI, what guardrails are in place, and what you're doing to put users' interests first. Just because AI policy may not control for things like copyright, it may not get you off the hook. This has the potential for creating communications crises for your organization where one did not need to be. My main takeaway is that AI will become a battlefield of sorts. In the race to come out on top, it doesn't mean that developers will need to exploit the holes that arise from the most problematic policies surrounding its development. And for communicators, this means AI narratives will increasingly be shaped by power struggles. Understanding whose values are embedded in your tools will be crucial. What do you think? Am I overstating the case or understating? I'd love to hear your thoughts. And thank you for listening. If you found this podcast helpful, please give it a like or a review, and also please subscribe. We are available wherever you find your podcasts. Our newsletter can be found at aiforcomms.substack.com. AI for Communications is a project of the Digital Impact Awareness Initiative and hosted by me, Keith Powell. You can find more information about the DIAI at diai.digital. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.